Our show, Mark Schlereth, the former Bronco who has connections to the team, informed us that there could be some friction between Gary Kubiak and Peyton Manning. Now, on paper, things look okay. The team's 2-0, but it's a new coach with a new scheme and a veteran quarterback. Skip, will Manning and Kubiak work moving forward?
And by the way, Molly and Stephen A., Mark Schlereth also pointed out that he's hearing that Peyton was not happy last week going into this game.
Yep.
And I don't see how he could have been, which gave me pause when we predicted the game. And I said, well, my one caveat, my one asterisk on this game is Peyton that unhappy? Well, for the longest time last night, he didn't look all that happy because too often I saw him have to take the snap from under center and then try to struggle back to where he was going to throw it or hand it off. And until Gary Kubiak can show me that he is the architect of a better run game than they had last year, when, by the way, down the stretch last year, last 5 or 6 games, they were the best running team in the National Football League. And now they're, I don't know what's happened, one of the worst. Now they've gone up against 2 really good run defenses, so we'll see how that sorts out. But if, in fact, this was a power struggle, I am hoping that Peyton Manning officially won it last night, especially in the 4th quarter. And I'm hoping that going forward that John Elway will say to Gary Kubiak, we now have to let Peyton be Peyton because that's our best shot of getting where we want to go. Even though Elway thought at the end of last year that wasn't their best shot. I still think it is because I would bet on Peyton over Kubiak. Peyton's resume over Kubiak's coaching resume. So I picked them to win this division. I'm sticking with it. I don't think they'll win the AFC because I think New England will. But I could see them getting to the championship game. I think Peyton is still really good. He looked 29 instead of 39, especially late last night. And once he got comfortable, because they had no choice but to let him be comfortable when they fell behind 14-0, once he got to run his offense out of his shotgun, they're still... They're lethal. And their defense is a little better than it was last year. So that combination, if they can figure out some run to complement Peyton's arm, which is still pretty good. I thought it looked the same to me last night. It's never been great, never had a cannon, but he threw some really good balls. That last ball to Emmanuel Sanders, that was a nice spiral with a little velocity, a little heat on it. So he is still extremely capable, and I'm hoping that Gary Kubiak now takes a back seat in the offense.
Let me say this to you, Skip Bayless. I don't categorically disagree with your points. As I said earlier, they definitely will need a running game. Hillman and C.J. Anderson need to show up and run the football more effectively. They just need to do that. But here's where I think you're missing the boat. Who the hell doesn't know that Gary Kubiak has no business winning some kind of battle against Peyton Manning? You're Gary Kubiak. What have you done? You've been coaching in the NFL. This is I think it's your 7th season as a head coach. You coached 6 years in Houston. You went to the playoffs twice.
He had a 10-6 and a 12-4.
He had a 10-6, 12-4. Went to the playoffs twice. Never coached. Never coached in an AFC Championship game. Okay.
He didn't have a quarterback though.
Yeah. Well, Matt Schaub was a 4,000+ yard passer. So I believe you because that's how I feel about Matt Schaub. But all the NFL aficionados have told me differently. They've told me that Matt Schaub can throw. They've told me that Matt Schaub is a pretty good quarterback. They told me Matt Schaub was second tier at the time. I'm just telling you, while you were at the NFL Network, folks was here getting on me, telling me that Matt Schaub was supposed to be special, and I said, give me a break. And sure enough, he went to other places, and I'm not going to call him a joke because he could play, but he wasn't that special, okay? So now he is a backup right what he belongs, right in the position that he belongs to be in, a backup. Having said all of that, back to Kubiak with Peyton Manning. We all know that Kubiak doesn't deserve to win a battle with Peyton Manning. What I think you need to pay attention to, Skip, is this. It ain't just Kubiak. It's Elway.
I agree. Well, the ultimate battle is between Peyton and Elway.
And we can't just sit there and dismiss Elway because whatever Peyton Manning has done, Elway has done. Peyton Manning has 1 Super Bowl title. Elway has 2. Elway is the president of football operations.
Thanks in part, by the way, to Terrell Davis.
Well, wait a minute.
I love
See,
TD.
that's not fair. That's not
no,
fair.
it is
That's not
fair.
Let me tell you why.
But it's very fair.
Peyton Manning won an AFC Championship game against
His
New
career
England,
was
which
cut
we
too
all
short.
believe was basically the Super Bowl that year, because ultimately he went up against Rex Grossman and the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl. But what I'm trying to say to you is this. Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. But that Tony Dungy team, they had a pretty good roster, okay? So when don't just say, I grant it, because Elway lost some Super Bowls and we understand that. And Terrell Davis being there certainly was a huge deal.
It was huge.
It was huge. It was huge.
Because by that point, John was aging.
Yeah, but he was still stepping out on the field and getting it done when he needed to get it done. All I'm saying is, from a cerebral perspective, we can't deny. It's one thing for Gary Kubiak to be sitting back there telling Peyton what he wants. John Elway has every right to tell Peyton Manning what he wants done. Not just because he is the boss, but also because he's the guy that's put the other pieces around Peyton Manning. Plus, he has played Peyton Manning's position at just as an elite level. Okay. So it's not like he's some backup who now happens to be the president of football operations. He was a scrub telling a Hall of Famer what to do. No, John Elway's a Hall of Famer at the same exact position with more Super Bowl titles than Peyton Manning has. And if that's what he says he wants done, and all of these studs we're looking at, whether it's Von Miller, whether it's DeMarcus Ware, Keith Talib and those boys, whether it's Hillman with CJ, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, John Elway has put these boys around Peyton Manning. So if he stands up and says, look, forget Kubiak, he's just echoing my sentiment. This is what I believe needs to be done in order for this team to get to this point. Now I got to step back, look at you, Peyton Manning, and say, well, damn, 70,000 passing yards. You're going to have more than Brett Favre. We all know that you're great. Not that I would quote Skip Bayless, but he did say you're the best regular season quarterback in history. But I'm thinking titles. And in 18 years, you got one. Perhaps you might need to listen. I don't think Gary Kubiak is qualified to say that, but John Elway is. He most certainly is. And I don't think anybody that knows anything about the NFL can refute that John Elway has the right to say that to Peyton Manning. Not Gary Kubiak. Don't forget him. He lucky he got the damn head coaching job. He shouldn't have had the head coaching job. It's your nepotism, friendship, and golfing buddies and all of that stuff why you got that job. But John Elway,
he is so far.
John Elway,
yeah, they have that relationship.
What is in
way
your
back.
tea?
It's just honey and milk.
Oh.
Do you think Elway maybe wanted someone he could control, and because of his relationship with Kubiak, maybe that was part of it?
You can say that. Here's my thing. Do you have the right to? Kubiak does not.
Okay.
What credentials does Peyton Manning have that Elway doesn't have? Elway wasn't some defensive wizard who happens to be the president of football. He was a quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback, who happens to be a two-time Super Bowl champion quarterback.
By the way, in his final 2 years in the NFL, he won Super Bowls. And just a point of order, remember, he walked away, did John Elway, at least a year before most people thought he would, because they had a chance to come back and do something nobody has ever done before. And that's win 3 straight Super Bowls. So is it possible, and I don't know this is just a theory from a distance, but is it possible John Elway was thinking after last year, you know, I called it quits a year early, like it's like the old Branch Rickey thing about you should trade a player a year before you think you should trade him. Maybe you should walk away a year before you think you should, before you just fall completely into oblivion and you're just an embarrassment. Maybe he thought Peyton should have walked away last offseason. But you can come back, Peyton, but we need to help you.
But regardless of what he thinks, I sincerely doubt he thought Peyton Manning was done. Remember, he threw 37 touchdowns and completed 66% of his passes and threw for 4,700 yards. Yeah. Most guys in the NFL ain't doing that, so I don't think anybody...
Who was John Elway's backup quarterback for years? Gary Kubiak?
Gary Kubiak.
But how close are they? Very close.
Once again,
best friends.
Once again, what I'm saying to you is, Gary Kubiak, as an extension of Elway, is what empowers Gary Kubiak. It's not that Gary Kubiak on his own gets to say that to Peyton Manning. But if Elway sits there and says, this guy is echoing my sentiments, then I'm saying it carries significantly more weight. And it should, because Elway is qualified to make those assertions. We can disagree with Elway until the cows come home, and I'm not sure I do. But we can disagree with Elway. All I'm saying is Elway does have the right. So let's pump the brakes from the perspective of, oh my God, he's Peyton Manning. He's above reproach. There's no reason to question him. Do we think that Peyton Manning should be left to do what Peyton Manning does? Of course we do, because it clearly has worked for him, at least in the regular season, to a very large degree. But if Elway is thinking championships and he's thinking along those lines, and he might have a desire to tweak things just a touch, Elway is qualified to make that argument, and no one can refute that. He is qualified to do that.
He's qualified, but I can refute it because I don't agree with it.
Well, you can disagree with it on its premise, but not in the same fashion that we would disagree of a Gary Kubiak.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that you feel the same way if there's a difference between Gary Kubiak and Peyton Manning, or if there's a difference between Peyton Manning and John Elway. If there's a difference between John Elway and Peyton Manning, that is a far more
time out here. I can show you a whole lot of great players who made really poor general managers.
But he wasn't. He's one of them.
I can. Yes. Like one really great basketball player.
I can think of one.
Stop. Let's not waste time with that, because the Denver Broncos record over the last several years proves that John Elway, that doesn't apply to him. It's not just because of Peyton Manning. It's because of the personnel he has surrounded Peyton Manning with. He has gone out and gotten those players, which you have praised him for. I have praised him for. Many folks have praised him for. Whatever inept general managers or president of football operations that are out there, we can't accuse John Elway of that.
No, he helped that defense
He
a lot.
has done the job. He has made them Super Bowl contenders. John Elway has done that more than Peyton Manning, because he has surrounded Peyton Manning with those players.
All right, so remember what I said when I opened the show today. The first words out of my mouth were about how Gary Kubiak, with the blessing, I assume, of John Elway, has effectively put Peyton Manning in assisted living. That's what I said, because they took the car keys away. They said, you can't drive anymore. You're too old to drive. We have to drive now. And last night, they got forced to give the keys back to Peyton, down 14-0.
Can I quickly use this analogy? I kind of disagree. I think that the road to the Super Bowl is a long road. And instead of Peyton Manning driving from New York to Florida, they sat up there and said, we're gonna have to take the keys from you for a couple of states. Maybe we'll pick it up on I-85 from Virginia to North Carolina. You can get back behind the wheel or something. I kind of think it's along those lines. They're saying you don't get to make the long drive, the long hike all by yourself.
All right, so if they start to run the ball, do they make it to the AFC Championship game?
It depends on who they go up against before the AFC Championship game.
All right. Cowboys-Eagles, can't wait. This one might get personal. We'll discuss that one next.